Hey guys, it's Micah for Sepulpa Times.
And Lucy with the City of Sepulpa.
Hey, welcome, guys. Hope you had a great weekend, and welcome to the Timeloop, first one of the week. We have got some stuff to talk about. I've got Joe Thompson from the Creek County Sheriff's Office going to be joining us just a little bit later to talk about what's happening with the 911 boundaries, and we'll talk about the history of that and kind of how we got to where we are today. And so a lot of you guys had questions about that when we had Mark Lawson on Friday. Had a very good show that time. And I want to extend an invitation to you guys. If you want to, if you have questions for Undersheriff Joe Thompson, be sure to leave them in the chat while we're going live, and we will relay those questions to him, and he'll answer them just as best as we can. Before all that, though, we have definitely got some stuff we want to talk about. First of all, I hope you guys were able to get to all the stuff that we had going on Saturday. There was so much. We had the Beer Garden grand opening, the Rock Creek Music Festival, and Emmett's birthday party was on Friday, so that was awesome. Am I missing something, Lucy? Was there something else going on Saturday? I don't think so. I think we were talking about the golf course tournament that's coming up this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so those were both supposed to be great times. Hope you guys were able to make them to make it to there. I actually didn't get to go to Rock Creek because it was my son's birthday party, but I understand that King Cabbage is really, really great, like New Orleans style brass band, and that they really put on a good show. So that was great to hear. So hopefully we'll get to have them back before too long, for sure. Today, it's Monday, summertime. We've got the Book and Snackmobile going on. Lucy, where are they going to be today? Do you know?
Yeah, so we've got 3 stops planned out for the Snackmobile today. They'll stop at Salvation Army at 9:30. Then they will head over to Price Mart at 10:30. And then they'll make their 3rd and final stop at 11:30 over at the Timber Creek Apartments.
Okay, awesome. So 3 stops today. And I like that they're branching out and they're not just going to the parks. They're actually stopping at apartment complexes and stuff. I don't remember them doing that last year. So
yeah, I think they stopped at 1, but I don't think it was Timber Creek. So it's good to see them on this side of town, even though, like, we have, schools and kids on this side of town. And I feel like last year it was all, heavily directed towards like Liberty and Holmes Park and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. So it's good to see them branching out. Okay, the other kind of event that I wanted to make sure we mentioned that we just got word of over the weekend, there's going to be a rummage sale happening for the Sepulpa Police Department. It's going to be at Eagle Point Christian Academy, and it's going to be the 14th, June the 14th. And the details for this are over on the Sepulpa Times community calendar, so you can go check it out there. We'll also be putting out the Facebook post. Eagle Point Christian Academy is the one hosting this sale. So if you have things you want to donate to this, there's going to be 2 separate times where you can actually drop items off. They'll also have a phone number you can text and stuff to donate products to the rummage sale if you have stuff you want to donate there. And yeah, so aside from that, that's pretty good. And then lastly, I wanted to make sure we do have quite a few birthdays going on right now. And I want to make sure we got that as well. So I do want to, it's my wife's birthday. If I do not say happy birthday to my wife on the show, she'll be mad. So Julia Choquette, it's her birthday. It's also Annie DeLong's birthday. And Willie Walters and Tom Pope all have birthdays today. And then tomorrow, I'm going to give her an early birthday shout out since I don't know if I'll be around her much. But tomorrow is Jordan Asensio from the Chamber. Her birthday is tomorrow. And then I think we've even got more, like we need a June 12th birthday. I've known people on the 13th, and we've had them going since June the 8th. And so we need a June 12th birthday to get the bingo card. The June birthday bingo card. So if you have a birthday on June 12th, please let me know so I can cross that off the list because we're on a roll right now.
That's awesome.
Any other birthdays or anything, Lucy, that you know about?
We celebrated a birthday this weekend. We had went to Lil Nash Youngblood, his birthday. He turned 5. And then just before that, we had Miles Smith, and he turned 6. So
lots of little birthdays happening around then also. That seems like June is like quite the month for birthdays. That's awesome.
hold on.
Anyway, okay, guys. Well, I will, Lucy, I'm going to cut you out. Do we have any other events we need to talk about before we bring Joe on?
Not right now. That's all I've got.
Okay. All right. Well, Lucy, we will see you again on Wednesday. Okay.
All right. Bye.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. All right, I'm going to bring in Joe Thompson now. Joe is the Undersheriff for the Creek County Sheriff's Office. And Joe, you and I had several conversations, or at least a couple, about what's happening July 1st with the 911 boundary changing and the PSAP boundaries changing. And we had Mark Lawson on the show on Friday to talk a little bit about the cities, what they're doing with like the changing of the boundaries and the need that they say to have a cooperative agreement between the city and the county, according to the statute that's being presented there. But I know that you guys have actually been working on this for a number of years. So I wanted to bring you on and kind of have you give people a chance to learn a little bit about the history, why this change is being made in the first place, and anything that's related to that. So, Joe, thanks for being here. I appreciate having you here. Can you start by just talking a little bit about the history of the 911 boundaries and why Creek County Sheriff wanted to make that move?
Yeah, good morning, Micah. Thank you for having us on. This has been a long process for the Creek County Sheriff's Office. We started back in 2017. We received a PSAP map essentially from the Oklahoma 911 Authority, and it was just showing kind of how Creek County was laid out. And at that time, we started talking to the state about why was Creek County's 911 system the way it was. And we didn't agree with exactly how the map showed certain areas and the populations and things like that. So we started communicating them way back in 2017, and they started actually telling us kind of what they saw was wrong with Creek County's 911 system and what the future held for 911. And they recommended a lot of changes that needed to occur. And so we started working with the 911 Authority and with different 911 professionals from people like NCOG to try to determine a future for 911 so that our county didn't fall too far behind and we end up in a lot worse place than we are right now. So that was a multi-year problem for us, where we continued to work with us and the other PSAPs from the municipalities, the state, and of course NCOG. And we worked toward trying to get to a place where all of Creek County could afford modern technology, modern infrastructure, and really prepare for next gen 911, which is supposed to be coming right around the corner. So from there, that ended up culminating in late last year, where the Creek County government essentially petitioned the state to consolidate all of unincorporated areas into one PSAP center. We know that there's still a lot of steps ahead for consolidating all the 911 centers, which is what the state's recommending. The county had a study done back started in 2019, and they kind of laid out the steps for what needs to occur. So we're just working toward that. We're excited about the future. We know that there's some very positive changes coming right around July for the 911 side of things. And we can't wait to get the ball rolling.
Okay, great. So taking it back down to where you started talking about, you guys were investigating the calls and things like that for the Creek County, and the statistic that you gave me was that something like, according to some of the tests you guys did, I mean, upwards of like 75% of the calls were going to the wrong place. And that's kind of what necessitated the need here to start changing these boundaries. Is that right?
Yeah. As cell phone technology has become more prevalent across the state and across the nation, what we were doing was we were trying to determine why 911 calls were not going to the proper places. So the state of Oklahoma had a map that has ESNs, or emergency service numbers, that really define districts on a map. And if you're inside of one of those districts, your call is supposed to go to a designated place. we conducted 2 separate tests with the 2 larger cell phone carriers in Creek County. And both of those, the first test actually had a failure rate of 75%. So the state of Oklahoma and 911 PSAPs in our local area, they could not determine where a 911 call was going. And 75% of the time, what they thought it should do, it did the wrong thing. It went to the wrong place. So we waited a short time, and then we tested another major carrier. And again, we had a failure rate of over 50% of the calls going to the wrong place.
Okay.
So as we looked at what was the contributing factor to that, there was a lot of contributing factors, but one of the big ones was that Creek County as a whole essentially had 5 small counties inside of one county. And that was very different than any of the successful PSAPs in Oklahoma. And so pretty much anywhere you were in unincorporated areas, you were not very far from a boundary or a line that contributes to confusion for 911 centers. So what we asked the state to do is let's shrink down those areas of confusion. Let's reduce them as much as possible. And we know that that's going to contribute to making sure that the calls are going to the place that's designated. And we're not going to have PSAPs kind of guessing at where calls are coming from or why.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so the situation as it pertains to the city of Sapulpa, because you guys are kind of on two opposite sides. I don't know. It's like once the county made the decision, not the county, but the state 911 management authority made the decision to consolidate those PSAPs. Actually, before I get to that, let me back it up in just a minute and go back to that report that you said. You said in that report that the state actually recommended consolidation, and in fact that my understanding is that there are no other counties in Oklahoma, save maybe one, that have PSAPs that are laid out quite like the way we do. Most of the other counties in Oklahoma are already pretty consolidated. Isn't that right?
Well, our understanding of that, yes, that's correct. We've studied other counties and what their approach to modern 911 dispatching, and it's very difficult to find one that's doing it like Creek County's doing it right now. And that's going to change in July. You know, we're going to be closer to the models that are recommended across the state and across the nation after July. But we do understand why those were set up originally and how that technology slowly crept out into unincorporated areas and across the state in rural areas. But yeah, it's difficult to find anyone that's doing it the way we are right now. And I think that's why there's models and there's plans out there for us to be able to follow to try to kind of catch up or prepare for what's coming in 2026.
Okay. Okay, so that leads me kind of to the other question that I started to ask a minute ago is when we had the conversation with Mark Lawson, they were talking about a cooperative agreement that was needed between the city and the county in order to continue to send fire trucks out to the unincorporated areas that are still within Sapulpa's fire district. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand the Creek County Sheriff's Office is not really that related to that in the sense that this is an agreement between the County Board of Commissioners and the city of Sapulpa, right? Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. There's 2 very separate things. One, 911 call taking is a very separate thing than resource management or dispatching resources. And all of our public safety partners, we work well together to get all types of emergency response dispatched once the 911 call is placed and processed. So they're very separate things. They're not related at all. And so, yeah, I can speak to the sheriff's office's opinion, but as far as any kind of agreement between the city of Sapulpa and the Board of County Commissioners would be something very separate than the sheriff's office. I'm sure they would speak to us about how it's going to impact 911 call taking, but resource dispatching they're 2 separate items.
Okay, so you brought something up there. How is it going to impact the 911 call taking? So can you kind of tell people who are watching what is going to change come July 1st in terms of who takes the 911 call, response times, things of that nature?
I think the biggest change is going to be in any unincorporated area. We are going to try to reduce the amount of confusion when you do place a 911 call. So what we're hoping for is after July 1st, if you make or you place a 911 call, it's going to one place. It's not going to bounce between 5 different places. So already no one could determine where calls were going. So if you lived 7 miles south of Bristow, or you lived out by Drumright, Manford, no one could really determine where that call was going to go. So the big change is going to be the reduction of that confusion. That's really the biggest portion of it. So at the for the last several years, all of these 911 PSAPs were processing or handling calls, and no one could really make any sense of why they were getting the call. There was no way to do that. We anticipate that after July 1st, that's going to change. And most of these incorporated areas, we're going to know where the call's going, and then we can standardize that approach to whatever emergency is being reported.
Okay. Do you anticipate faster, slower response times?
Well, if you look at statistics, if you look at how the 911 system works, absolutely. We know the percentage of 911 calls that come in and how they relate to emergency services. So if right now we know that about 69% of our calls that were coming into the county's PSAP required a law enforcement response. So knowing now that those calls are going to one place, that means the other PSAP should not have to transfer those calls. So 70% essentially of the calls are going to start to have a faster dispatch time. I think no matter what, you're playing a numbers game when you're talking about 911 transfers. So very important partners of ours, like the Creek County Ambulance, we're working on methods to speed up how they get their calls from our PSAP, and I'm sure the other PSAPs are working the same way. All of those small percentage calls, like fire calls, things like that, there's going to be changes to that, but the majority of the calls now are going to be going to the proper place. So we do anticipate that it's going to speed up response times or dispatch times.
Okay. We do have a question coming in. I'll get to that in just one second, but it's kind of a preface to that. The Creek County's relationship and response by all the other municipalities that are involved here, which would be Sapulpa, Bristow, Drumright, and then Manford. I think that's right. Is that right? Is that right? The other 4? Yeah. Okay. So your collaboration with them is, what's going to change in regarding to all these other municipalities when these they come July 1st, I guess?
Well, I think for them, the bigger thing is they're probably not going to be getting as many 911 calls from unincorporated areas.
Okay.
That's probably going to be the biggest change for them. This is a very complex subject that's why I think we've been working on it since 2017. Is there's a lot of different things that are going to occur once this change happens, and it's taken us a lot of years to prepare for it. But I think the biggest or the easiest explanation is they shouldn't receive as many 911 calls from unincorporated areas as they do right now.
Okay. One more question before we go to the question that Tammy submitted. You said that this has been a long time coming. I just wanted to ask, why did it take so long to kind of get the 911 Management Authority to make this decision to consolidate the PSAPs?
Well, for us, we've been told from the state throughout the years that this is a local issue. And so working with all of our public safety partners, that's what brings up the complexities, is what does this look like for the future? How do we make decisions? Trying to get one government to do something can be difficult sometimes. You can imagine trying to do 5 different governments to do something at the same time. It can be very difficult. It didn't, once we petitioned the state, it did not take very long at all. We've only done one petition. We didn't have to ask them multiple times. But as soon as the Board of County Commissioners approved that request, it didn't take but just a couple of months for that to be finalized. But the process, starting the process, it's taken a long time. Getting the right answers has taken a long time, and it just had a lot of moving parts in it. So I think that's why it's been as long as it's been.
Okay, good deal. We're going to go to the first question that we have in the chat. And I want to remind anybody who's watching, if you guys have questions for Joe Thompson here, be sure to leave them in the chat and we'll relay them just as best as we can here. So Tammy is actually asking what fire department will be responding to her home. She lives off of New Sepulpa Road, outside of city limits in the county. And so, Joe, would you be able to answer that?
Oh, to the best of my knowledge, I can. If it sounds like, or it reads like she lives in Sepulpa's fire boundary. So as far as I know, the Sepulpa Fire Department will be responding to an emergency out there. The way the 911 system works is all of these districts and response areas they're defined in the 911 systems. So if you make a call and those systems are working correctly, it's going to notify that dispatcher which resources are responsible for those areas. As far as I know, the Sepulpa's fire district or boundary hasn't changed at all, and of course we hope it's not going to change. I haven't heard of any official action from their city council that would say that they're going to be reducing their fire district.
Okay, and that when we heard from Mark on Friday, there had been no decision in that as far as the change being made, but I guess there was a lot of concern about how they were going to be able to pay to send the fire trucks outside of the city limits and be able to meter that appropriately. But it's like you said, they're two separate issues, right? The changing of the 911 boundaries is not the same issue as the city sending its fire services outside of the
I don't know if they've stumbled onto a new funding problem. That may be something, but being in law enforcement, I'm not very aware of the funding issues for fire departments, so I don't know what would have changed for the fire department. I do understand the 911 subject, but I know that as far as I know, nothing's changed with the fire departments.
Okay, so come July 1st, if Tammy has to call 911, then my understanding is Creek County Sheriff will answer, but you'll still be dispatching Sepulpa Fire just like.
Like I said, the Sepulpa Fire or the Creek County Ambulance or the Sheriff's Office, if they're going to be responsible for that unincorporated area, we routinely handle calls like that all the time now. So nothing like that's going to be different. I know it. People can portray it that way, but this is something that's routine. It occurs all the time. It's been occurring this way for a long time. So I don't anticipate any major changes.
Okay. Now, this didn't come about as a conversation from last week, but as more information about this change has become available to the public, there's been some concern about whether or not the Creek County Sheriff's Office could actually handle the volume and the infrastructure and things like that related to probably what will be a pretty good influx of 911 calls. And you actually were pretty optimistic about that. Can you talk a little bit about Creek County's ability to handle those?
Well, from the studies that's been done throughout the county by people like Mission Critical, you can actually determine the number of calls that were coming in from 2020, and it's very simple for us to do that right now. And if you look at the call volume that comes in on the 911 side across the county between all 5 PSAPs, it's not something that is concerning for a dispatch center to be able to handle. We are one of the only PSAPs in the county that actually have dispatchers that don't have a lot of ancillary duties. So we're not concerned. We have dedicated 911 dispatchers that are sitting at 911 consoles, and they're highly trained. We're very proud of the work that they do, and we're not concerned at all if our call volume goes from 3 911 calls per hour up to 6 911 calls per hour or 7. That's not concerning for us. We know that we're going to be able to handle it.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, well, we're not getting a lot in terms of the questions and things like that. I think a lot of that already got answered on Friday. Do you have any other kind of information you want to make sure that people know before this change comes into place in July?
Absolutely. If anyone that's in unincorporated areas wants to talk about what those, what's going to change, or if they have any concerns and they want to ask the sheriff's office about it, they're welcome to reach out, ask any questions that they have. We've been working on it a long time. We're prepared for it. We've worked with our public safety partners. There's not a lot of people that are really concerned about this from the first responder level. I think, I understand that there's going to be administrators and there's going to be city management that they want some of these things to be explained to them, or they want to prepare for the next step in consolidation. And all of that's going to come, I know, with time. But for now, if anyone has questions, reach out, ask us questions. We'll be glad to answer them.
Okay. Before we cut out, I did want to just reiterate one more thing that you said. You kind of touched on it. You did say July 1st is kind of the starting point of this. This doesn't mean that everything's going to be fixed overnight, right?
No, I don't believe so. We have to continue working toward progressing. And so the reason why these changes have to occur is because the county has identified problems in the 911 system. And that study that was done, that wasn't requested by anyone but the county, because we could see that we were going to try to fix some things over the next decade. So we know there's a lot of steps that have to occur. And this is really just the first step for consolidating and improving the unincorporated areas. 911 and the way it functions is very complex. So going back and looking at how do we improve GIS mapping across all unincorporated areas, making sure that MSAG management or the master street address guides working correctly. That's steps that we know we have to start looking at, especially for all the areas that we haven't necessarily been managing for 911 for the last several years. So we do have a lot of things that we have to work on. And I know the sheriff, along with the Board of County Commissioners, they're all taking steps to try to make it better over the next few years. And we always have that ever-present next-gen 911 that's looming. And so we want to make sure that our county is ready for that when it does come around. So, yeah, it's going to be a work in progress, but we know that a lot of progress is coming, and it's going to start July 1st.
Okay, great. Well, guys, this has been Joe Thompson here with the Creek County Sheriff's Office talking about the changes that are happening to the 911 boundaries going into effect on July 1st. Like he said, if you have any other questions, you can reach out to them directly over at the Creek County Sheriff's Office, and I'm sure they'll be happy to explain any kind of changes that you may answer, any questions you may have. So, Joe, thanks again for coming on the show. We appreciate you being here to help clarify things, and hope you have a great week.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, guys. So that is kind of rounding out the story on the 911 changes here that are happening. So if you have any other additional questions, maybe something we need to retouch on from what we have with Mark and now with Joe Thompson, then we'll be constructing an entire story that's going to be a lot more lengthy, have a lot of details in here, and try to explain it as best we can, because we know it's a confusing subject. It's definitely something that not a lot of people are familiar with, because for most of us, the whole situation with 911 just means, is somebody going to answer the phone when I call? And we don't really think about the mechanics and what happens after we make that call, just as long as the people we need to be there are on their way. So turns out there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes there. So, and looking at how that might affect us and our ability to make 911 calls and who's going to be responding to them and things like that, it's important. So we're trying to give you the information you need to know so you can be prepared. And looks like about 20 or 21 days is when that's going to take effect. So we'll continue to monitor that. If there's any new information regarding the city, if they make a move on whether or not to change the way that the Sapulpa Fire Department responds to calls, and we'll keep you in the loop on that. But in the meantime, I do want to say thank you to Mark Lawson, for our state representative, and to Joe Thompson for coming on the show to be a part of that conversation and to help get the information out there to the people that need to know. So, all right, I'm going to kick it over to Jonathan now with our scripture of the day, and then we will be back here in just a minute.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. And it's time for the scripture of the day. It comes from Psalms 51:12, and it says this: "Restore to me the joy of your salvation, and grant me a willing spirit that will sustain me and keep me going." I pray today that if you forgot the joy of salvation, maybe the passion that comes with it to keep you going, that you experience that today. If you don't have it today, ask God to give it to you, and He'll help you. I'm Jonathan, and I'm out.
Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, this is the part of the show where I thank everybody who subscribes to the Sapulpa Times. Your $4.99 monthly subscription helps keep this show going and helps us provide all the content that we do online and things like that. So those of you who have taken upon yourself to help support us in our work, just want you to know how much we appreciate that. Thanks for supporting us and what we do. We really appreciate that we're able to serve the community that we live in. And then I did want to give a quick shout out also on Wednesday. We are going to be shooting from the Sapulpa Community Theater. They've got a brand new show that's coming out next week. called Leaving Iowa. And we're going to have either someone from the production staff or someone from the cast actually on the show on Wednesday to be able to talk about that show. So we're looking forward to seeing them there and having them on the show. And I look forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday. So thanks for tuning in. We will see you again on Wednesday where we talk about all things happening in the town that we love. We'll see you later.